G'day guys, welcome back to this episode 2 of Stitch, the XB Falcon. Thank you to all my new subscribers and to everybody who's watched the video. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the channel. So what have I done since last we met? I've welded that in. I probably caused myself a little bit more work because I probably got a little ahead of myself. But that's all right. Somebody commented, just buy the whole new panel and save yourself making up the patch panels, which, valid point, for $400 I could get it. One of my things that I really enjoy doing is making up the patch panels. However, I did see you can get these babies here, this section here, for a couple of $100. So I don't know, something to keep in mind. The whole thing was 400, I think 400 to get the rear tail light panel plus those sections here, which I think is actually a really good bargain. Don't really have $400 to spend on that sort of stuff right now. And I have the skills and ability, so I'm going to keep going the way I'm going. This also is a good tutorial for people who want to make their own panels. So not everything is available from rare spares, and you are going to need to know how to do some certain things as far as creating your own patch panels and making up different shapes and whatnot. So that's what this channel's about. This channel's about doing it on the cheap. It's called I Call Bull, simply because there is a lot of different information out there. There's a lot of different information out there in the world about what's wrong and what's right, and a lot of it I just call bull, because if you want to make something happen, you'll do it. You'll make it happen. And there's a lot of naysayers, there's a lot of people who waffle on and talk garbage about this is the only way to do it. There's not one way to do pretty much anything. There's, more than one way to skin a cat, as I used to say. So that's what we're doing. And I registered that. I didn't really spend a lot of time showing you guys how I made this up. I just kind of showed you how I did the template, and I showed you stages. So this week I'll spend more time showing you how I'm going to turn that there into that there. And one of the things that we need to talk about is tooling. And what do I mean by tooling? Well, where I work, we have a metals department, and we've got, obviously, metal benders or metal brakes. We've got guillotines or guillotines, however you want to say it. We've got anvils, we've got shears, we've got stuff here that I can utilise. But that hasn't always been the case. And so if you go back, and this is for the newer viewers obviously, but if you go back and you have a look at some of the early green limousine stuff, I was making stuff up, and still do make stuff up, with some pretty agricultural kind of things. So if you don't have a press brake or a metal bender, or whatever you want to call this, if you don't have one of those, it's really easy to do this sort of stuff with a good quality vise. You can do it with hitting it on heavy metal if you've got some steel. This here, this stump, ground out stump, that's great for making shapes up and beating them. You can come up with all different ways, but I would suggest, if you're going to do a project like the XB, that you would make yourself a press brake if you can't afford to buy one. And there are a million plans on the internet on how to do that. Guillotine, you really don't need a guillotine. I very rarely use this thing because I just cut it with an angle grinder. And for smaller stuff, I just use tin snips. So you really don't need this elaborate stuff. But all that being said, let's get on with how I did this. Okay, well, I almost made a rookie mistake because I was about to bend that the wrong way, and I had to go and transfer the image onto the other side of the tin so that I could cut it on the right and bend it on the right direction, because otherwise I would have stuffed up royally. Rookie mistake, but that's the way it goes. I've done that more than once. So, all right, I'm going to bend this so it's up to 35, and that'll give it a little bit of spring back. And then that's pretty good. All right, and then loosen that off. Sorry guys, I'm trying to do this one-handed. You have no idea how tight this beggar is. And it wants to spring back. Hold on, we're going to need two hands here. Alright, and again, so that's how that looks. And then again, up to 35 on this bad boy. And then down. Okay. Now on this one, it's got a little bit of a tuck. Whereas on the other one, it didn't do that. Which I was quite surprised about, to be honest. You see that? That's what we call a tuck. That's explained in my earlier videos, but basically that's where the metal is gathered on a curvature, because it's got to go somewhere. And there's a whole stack of ways to deal with that, but that's all right. Okay, we're back at the car now, and I'm checking the angle. It's not bad. It could come a little bit more, but I've got to cut that section out there, because that'll fit in under there. I noticed the other day that's all pushed up, so that's all got to be rebuilt as well. That whole section will have to be rebuilt because that metal is crap. So now that looks like that, and what I have to do now is I have to put the little kicker in for the bottom section where it juts in and then down and then out again. I want to get that spot on, so I'm probably going to go and marry that up to the other side so I can get it identical. Let's do that. Okay, so I want to marry those two up. Okay. So I want to go there and there. I want to go there and there. And we want to remember that that goes in and that's out. Okay? Because it's really, really easy to get to the machine and start bending and go the wrong direction. So I've got to do my in and my out, right? So as I've written, in and out, and then on the other side I've got to make the marks identical. Alright, because I'll fold my in first. Yeah, and then I'll fold my out. So I'll have to turn it over to do that. So then we just give it a little head going in the correct direction. Right, so I've got those marks pretty much lined up. Lock it in again, Eddie. Give it a little kick. There we go. And now we can go and compare it to the other one. Should be fairly close, I think. It should be a lot better. That makes more sense. Okay. So that's much better. That has slightly more, the original, has slightly more angle than the new one I've made up on the bottom, but that's pretty flaming close, so I'm pretty happy with that. And that lip has to be taken back a bit anyway, so not stressed. I've marked out where I need to cut away for this section here under the tail light for the bumper to go. I'll also straighten this little kick bit out because that'll throw me off while I'm trying to organise everything. Somebody's been in here before and they've pop riveted, and perfectly acceptable, pop riveted a plate in here to keep it going. We got some things going on here. I'm not sure why, but things aren't lining up. This is crushed in. I think I'll ignore that for now and just keep going with what I'm doing though. All right. What next? So I've got to trim everything up, and then I'm going to start screwing it in. I use these little tech screws, and some people will use Clecos. I've never used a Cleco in my life. I'd love to have Clecos. I don't have them, but these work just as well. You screw it in and you can get everything lined up, and then once I've got it lined up, I'm gonna get a red texter because I've done everything with black texter so far. I'm gonna get a red texter, and I'm gonna make as best I can, a perfect scribe of that, so that it's as close as possible to being exactly where it is now in situ. I'm pretty happy with that. I did have to extend it out a little bit. I don't have the light to, I spent hours the other day looking for the light, and I'm talking like probably 3 hours. And I rang my son. I'm like, I can't find the passenger side, the driver's side light. He said, no, Dad, we've only got the one light, which is this one for this side. He said, we don't have the light for the other side. So that was funny but frustrating all at the same time. Anyway, I'm not going to show you me trimming that up because it's, it's the exact same as what I just did, but I will cut you back on when it's time to mark out the light and doing that process. Alright, so like I said, I use these little babies here. Little impact driver with a 8mm, or I think it's 5/16? Yeah, 5/16. Either or, same thing. Alright, we'll put it. Remember what I said, it doesn't have to be perfect at this point in time. So we want to line him up as best we can there. Needs to be on number 3. Okay, and that's now got that in situ, and we're going to see all the places where we have taken a little too much steel out. Taken a tiny bit too much out there, which I'm going to have to fill back in, which is a pain in the neck, but it's not too big a drama. Can't do anything about it now, I've done it. So we'll put, when I start off doing this, I put kind of minimal amount of these in, because every one I drill in, I've got to then weld up and grind off, so. Go through. Okay, so the other thing you'll find is you might do two identical plates, and one goes really, really easy, and the other one really sucks. So I've drilled that hole, and it's pulling that down, which is not where I want it to be. So now I'm going to abandon that hole because it's being a pain. I'm going to go and put one over here. Unfortunately, redos and do-overs are a part of this game. If you want metal shaping videos to watch, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, make it custom. And Scout, what is it, 68 Scout I think it's called. Bennett's Customs, they're some of the best ones I can recommend for you. They're amazing, they've taught me so much. It's all good metal there. So I'm actually going to, I'm actually going to cut it under that and use the original fold lines. Now I'm thinking about it. Yeah. To where does it stop being good metal? I can take it right along to here, realistically. So let's do that. Right, yeah. I would rather use original steel than aftermarket as far as like putting these patches in, because it's what the factory intended. It's going to be the better shape. So I still have to neaten this up a little bit. I've got to come along here, straighten that up. And then I will marry these up. I'll still come down, I'll grind this down a little more so that I can come well under that lip when I'm welding it, because I don't want to destroy that lip. But that gives me a pretty good indicator of what I need to do. I need to do little repairs over here. But I still think I'm going to cut this probably from this corner here across. So let's do that. Okay, so that gives me, just remember your steel is sharp and hot, so probably if you had a brain you'd use pliers. Alright, so that's what that looks like. And I'm going to put a couple more, just to tie it into place, a couple more Tech screws in, and then I'm going to mark out the back of this for where it's got to be exactly. Alright, now I'm going to remark this baby here in red, because I've already marked it in black. I don't want to confuse myself, but I want to get as close as I can to exact. And then I've got to go home. When I come back, I'm going to cut that out, and I'm going to leave a lip like I did on the other one, so I can fold it over and get it as close to perfect as I can. Well, perfect or factory, close to factory as I can. I'm going to also mark out the original holes, And that's very important. If you can do that, if you've got the holes, it's quite important to get that right now at this stage, because we want to be able to make sure we're all in alignment with where we're supposed to be before we go welding stuff in. And anyway, turn around. That's where that rig's looking. That's how that rig's looking right now, and that's it's a big improvement on where we started a couple of days ago. So, all right, I'm going to go home for lunch, and I'll be back. Alright, I don't know if you remember from last episode, but this is the little doodad that I made up that basically I stole off one of my favourite fabricators, and he stole it off Chip Foose of Overhauling. And basically I'm just going to put this little slot over here. Alright, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. And I'm just going to start doing that. Just moving along. That's too deep for this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the shallower one, which should be about the same depth as this one. And it is. Okay. So just do that. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just the first round. Got a lot of hammering and dollying, and we'll beat it on the anvil as well. We just want to basically get it started, get our bend in there. Because the hardest part is to get the bend in, basically, from a standing kind of position. Okay, so that's how we're looking there. Right, I'll kind of continue my way around it, and then I'll cut you back on when I go over to the anvil. So before I go to the anvil, I'm actually going to use the vise to kick it over to a 90 and to straighten it up somewhat. So we'll try that. Okay. Pull that out the way a little bit. So I made the other one up and I was happy with it, but compared to this one, it's not as good. But that'll often happen. You'll learn on the first of anything you do, and then you'll have to, then you'll improve your methods. Like the first pancake, really. It's never the best. Now on this corner here, I'm probably going to round it and use the peen end. This is going to be so much nicer than the other one. I'm going to regret having welded the other one in. I really am. So what I want to do is start up this end where I was happier, because this first, remember the first ones I was too aggressive. So now I've got to straighten that up a bit. The great thing about this is I can flex it out of the way. Get it going. I'm actually really in love with this system. So this is a really good way of doing it. It's working out really, really well. I'm very happy with the way this is going. And that's just a simple vise. I'm making that up in a vise. And apart from this, realistically, because I didn't need all that fold at the top that I did originally, because I've done away with it. realistically, you could do that whole thing, piece of cake in a vise. You could bend all of this up. The only thing that's going to be tricky, and I probably will need to use the anvil for, is this. But let's try and do it in a vise to see what we can achieve. So I'll get it there. It is going to be tricky. But what you could do, you could put a couple of bits of longer angle iron or something there, and you could... I'm going to try it with this. I'm just going to put that in there. Alright. Put that in as close as I can. I'm going to reef down on that. I'm going to see if I can get all the way. Piece of cake. Problem solved. So, it's not hard to make up panels. It can seem daunting and intimidating, but it's really not hard to make up. You've just got to think outside the box. Alright, so that's that. That's an original. Okay. Line the holes up. Pretty darn close. Not bad at all. Okay, can you see that those holes, see the red dots? There and there. Okay, and then if I flip it over, it's a little bit different, but it's not bad. It'll certainly do for my money. Okay, well, I didn't bother filming it, but I had to throw away the one I showed you guys because I stuffed it completely. I made that light insert way too big. I don't know what I did wrong, but anyway. So I started again. That's what I've come up with. I made this center bit. I've shown you all the principles for that, so I didn't see the need to go over it. But if we come back here, and the lighting is terrible, but that's what we've got. That's how it looks, which is much better than what we had. Get that out of the way because it's casting an ugly shadow. Okay. So, sheet metal wise, that's what we've got. But that is bowed in, that section is bowed in. And like I say, that was my mate with his loader trying to help. So I've got to square that up and do some measurements and stuff. I may or may not show you how that all works, but regardless, before I can weld it in fully, I've got to mess around and get that all straightened out. So I'll do that. I'm currently just using some of the offcuts to make up little bits and pieces. I'm making up for this gas filler tank, or gas filler, for this fuel filler hole. I'm making up the sections for that out of scrap that I've got left over from this back bit here. And so we never throw away our offcuts. We just keep using them for other little bits and pieces. Once I've got that straightened out, I'm going to attack these. I'd like to have this whole back beaver panel, tail light panel welded up by early next week, and then yeah, I'll move on from there, I guess. So it'll go beaver panel because And the reason it'll go beaver panel is because up under here, and you saw it earlier, there was a there's a lip there, and that lip is mostly rotted out, so that's got to get done. I stupidly welded that side in, and I hadn't done it yet. I got a little MIG crazy, so I'm going to have to do a cut there and cut all that section out, not the tail light, but down the bottom where that lip is. I've got to do this, and you know, there's a lot got to go on with these. If I had new quarter panels, that would be amazing, because these are absolute crap. But I'm working with what I got. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. I'm going to use the majority of the lip that was already there. And I want these little, I could make these up, but I'd rather use the original. So I'm going to use them, and I'm going to weld that all, make it one piece. So yeah, that's probably it for this particular episode. Hopefully you got something out of it. Trying to keep them a bit shorter. Could be seen as a little repetitious. I don't know. I hope it's not. But yeah, that's where we're at. So I'll see you guys next episode. Be kind to one another. It's free to be kind. Thank you for watching. Appreciate your likes. I love your comments. And I love that more people are subscribing. So thank you very much. Be blessed.